Hello, hello, hello. And let me just get my camera organized here. So, today on the show, what we are working on is a couple more inked live stream thumbnails. And last time, I'll just show the ones we did a couple weeks ago. We did one for Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness. We did one for Ricky B Goes to Sea, this be a Friday stream and the Monday stream. Well, what we need to do is one for this stream on Tuesdays. So we've got all my characters here: Miles cracking the whip, Ricky complying, Noah not being willing to, and Ursula also objecting to being told to get to work. So we're going to start at the top left and work our way diagonally across. So let's get right into it with the dialogue stuff. I'm using, well, I guess it's kind of visually obvious. I'm using a dip pen, and this is just one of the Speedball. I don't have an unopened one, but I usually have a on this desk, but I usually have one spare kit, but the cartooning set, so that'll have these sort of nibs in a few different sizes, and then one of these kind of liner ones. I do also have a glass pen that I use sometimes for fine detail work. I'm so used to being able to, like, really put some pressure on um, these metal nibs to get some sort of thicker lines like that. Of course, you can't do that with the glass nib. So it's taking some getting used to. Also, I wish I had the twist design is pretty, but these edges, they're not sharp, but they're not super comfortable going into your knuckle. I'm probably going to order another glass pen off of Amazon one of these days that has a more kind of rounded look, and it'll be a little easier on the old fingers. So, but for right now, that one certainly does its job. And what am I using? I am using, as I kind of complain about in several of my streams, I'm using the Canson XL recycled Bristol board. I much prefer the Strathmore smooth Bristol board, but I'm trying to use up the Canson stuff. And I mean, hey, once it's done, it looks fine. I find the pen kind of digs into it more. So, and I'm kind of more or less using a traditional comics process with the blue underdrawing and the inking on top. So, can't forget Miles's whiskers. They kind of disappear into his hair, but it is what it is. So, boom, boom, boom. Miles, of course, loves yelling and being a little tyrant. So of course he's going to enjoy being able to scream at his fellow cartoon characters. Miles is from my Ricky B, the rock and roll rat world. Miles is the half mouse, half rat cousin of Ricky's girlfriend, Baby. Well, her real name's Barbara, but Ricky always calls her Baby, and she is kind of the baby of the family, youngest of 5 daughters. So everybody calls her Baby, except Miles calls her by her real name, Barbara. I will go in with a fatter nib and really black out his jacket, but I kind of want some highlights to show, and I'd like there to be some texture in that. So hence why I'm going to the trouble of kind of doing these little filling in lines. I've already got it. Probably doesn't focus. Yeah, we're too close, but I've already got, just in the first couple minutes, I've got like a little bit of fluff that's scraped off of the Bristol board and into the tip of the nib. So I have to stop every so often and wipe that off on a paper towel. Otherwise, it kind of, well, goes like that. So this is, well, basically what I'm going to start doing with my Tuesday streams from now on is they're going to kind of become inventory working streams. Um, Getting ready to, and I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I do want to set up things up as like a proper business, uh, which I haven't done yet, but that will be coming soon. So once I have that done, I will want to set up like a shop or something like that, or a printify. So we will need to populate that with stuff. But the next project we will be working on the Tuesday streams is actually a calendar project, which I will be hoping to have all the art done. I think I figured if it's done by sometime in July, then I can get the calendars printed and allow for shipping time come August and into September, and then have them ready, excuse me, for sometime in September or October 1st at the latest. So that is the plan. And I kind of debated combining the characters, but I mean, for Noah and Ursula, they are from my webcomic, Noah's Archipelago. But which I'm a little behind in posting it on the actual, I'm more than a little behind. I'm like a few months behind on posting it on the actual website, but I'm up to date on, Facebook and Instagram and stuff. But we do sometimes have, in fact, we had in yesterday's, we had both Ricky and Miles make an appearance. But generally speaking, Miles and Ricky aren't part of the Noah world. Uh, and So I thought it would probably make more sense if I had, a Ricky and Noah, or Ricky and Miles kind of most world sort of a calendar, and then a Noah one with the more human characters. And Miles is looking like he's a little bit pudgy there, but whatever. All the more reason for him to disdain the cartoonist. It's, we'll give him a little cap toe. Miles likes wearing like old timey style shoes, including, your two-tone cap toes, spectator shoes, I guess they used to be called. So I think we're gonna just, although it does kind of make him look like he's wearing like pleated pants, but I think we're just gonna kind of fill in the pants. They might go black as well. Usually I draw Miles with kind of like gray pants and a purplish black jacket, but obviously we're not doing color. This just dip pen. I mean, I do have colored inks that I sometimes use with a dip pen, but I've been kind of doing, and for the calendar, I am kind of, well, we'll see. Next week's stream, it might be a bit of an experiment. Um, but the plan as of right now is to do, each week do a given month. So we'll start with, I think we'll actually start with January. I mean, the cover I'll probably do last, just because then I'll have all the art inside. So I'll kind of have already drawn, so then I'll have kind of planned exactly what sort of a vibe I'm going for. But anyways, we'll end up having kind of one plan if I do it black and white art, then I can definitely do, like, the Ricky Miles art and then the Noah, etcetera art in a given one show and have time to ink both of them because 'cause they'd be basically the same size as, these pages, and I already know from past streams that I can definitely, fit 2 in, right? Um, if I do color though, I mean, um, it's probably still something that's viable. Because I think the last time I was doing, different colored inks one of the, with dip pens was probably Vlogmas 2024. And I think they were, um, I think those were about an hour or so each, those videos. Only thing is I was pausing to clean, um, stuff out in the middle, but I think what I might have to do is just have like um, a dish tub, one of those kind of basins, and do all the color stuff first because I'd rather have the black outline on top. Do all the color stuff first, then put my palettes down into um, the basin full of water to clean after the show, and then proceed with the black. So, anyways, we will find out next week if that works. It's, of course, the other option would be to use markers for color, or to, at least in the live stream, just do black and white and then add color digitally or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. It's one of those things where it's a big project that normally I would want to do a crap load of planning for, but at the same time, sometimes my best stuff happens with like zero planning. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anyways, so we got Miles there with his bullwhip and shaking his fist. Yeah. Give this little podium a little bit of darkness to it. It's gonna get cropped out, but still. And the horizon line not exactly flat, but you know, kind of more of a. I think of it more as like a baseboard for something. I don't know. And as so often happens, Ricky is not standing up to Miles because he rarely does. Well, he's a big believer in happy wife, happy life, and Miles is his girlfriend's cousin, and he intends to marry said girlfriend. So I think on some level, Ricky's kind of like, well, I gotta put up with him. 'Cause he gonna be family someday. I don't want no trouble with the in-laws. Of course, baby fights with Miles all the time, but that's different because that's her prerogative as the cousin, whereas Ricky's a little concerned about getting in trouble for picking fights with Miles. But Am I gonna have to wash this pen out already? It's only 15 minutes in. Sometimes that's what it really needs, though, is to move to a different pen and soak this one in the uh, water bowl for a few minutes. Don't think it really, well, I know it's out of frame, but I have like 3 of these glass bowls filled with water, so I can soak pens as I go. Which I mean, it stops some of the ink from drying in your nib, but some of it's going to anyways, especially over the course of a couple hours of drawing on stream. Um, since I don't have another inking live stream until Friday, what I'm going to do, um, not tonight, but tomorrow when I'm doing a bunch of other housework, I'm going to soak my nibs in a handy dandy ultrasonic cleaner. I'll let them get shaken around in that for a couple hours and then use some pen cleaner to try and dissolve things a little further. And then do the ultrasonic cleaner again, all of which is kind of pointless because I have a whole bunch of other nibs I could be using, but I don't know. I like the ones that I've been using for years, even though they kind of are a little bit clogged up and etc. Ricky's tail is a little bit droopy. I kind of have I've been thinking about, if they've got the tails, they presumably would be somewhat expressive, right? So when I draw Ricky and he's like quite perturbed, the tail tends to go straight up. And happy, he's kind of up with a bit of a curve at the end. Here it's a little droopy. He's not thrilled about this situation. Trying to figure out why I had an oval drawn there, but I think we'll just ignore that. He's sitting at a bar. I don't know, maybe it was supposed to be a placemat or something, but I don't remember. I drew this like almost a month ago. Yeah, Ricky's favorite brand of beer, of course, is Rat Brew, which has shown up in a couple other cartoons. Uh, Although I don't think any that I've done on live stream, but definitely some of the marker cartoons I've done featuring Ricky had him holding like a big case of Rat Brew beer. And now we'll do his little speech bubble. Don't know how much it shows up in the camera because of size and whatnot, but like I said earlier, do like with the metal nibs that you can put some pressure on and you get the line, you get more ink coming out, therefore you get a fatter line, which is kind of nice. I don't know, it's probably a bad habit. It's probably destructive for nibs, but then, nibs are like, I don't know, Where I live, I can either go down to Opus Art Supplies in Victoria, and I could buy individual nibs for $6 each Canadian, or I could do what I normally do, which is get the cartooning kit, um, either from Amazon or that might be the nib kit they have at Michael's. I forget now, but it's about 20 to $25, and it's got the holder and like 6 different nibs, so, it's a better deal. Of course, it's also true that what I was complaining about with this recycled Bristol board at the beginning, where it gets gouged up, my habit of pushing down on the nib is probably part of what's kind of digging into the paper and then getting little bits of paper fiber fluff stuck in the nib. So it is what it is. I will take a different fatter nib afterwards to add some extra heft into some of these shadow areas. Just trying to think, should I put texturing in the floor? I probably should. Might be nice to add some wood grain. Of course, now I have like brand new wet ink here. So you know what? Yeah, I'll do that kind of first. So I'll leave a little bit of a halo like this around Noah and Ursula. And I'm not going to be like drawing every board, but it's actually a good thing to do with the glass pen because kind of end up with slightly finer lines. And then when I'm using the medium nib to give some heaviness here, then I'll bring that in and sort of give the hint of some outlines of the boards. It's funny with the glass nibs. In theory, there shouldn't be like a right side or a wrong side. They're all kind of, it's just, you know. But I do find I do have to roll the pen a certain way, even though it looks like it should be um, kind of uniform all the way around. But there's always like one spot where the ink will want to flow more. And if I roll it from there, then we don't have ink coming out. Try and make that a little bit flatter, maybe. Yeah. And again, we're kind of overstating the fact with the faux wood grain, but off the top of my head, I think pretty much every dive bar I've ever been in has always had a wood bar. Do you find this glass pen sometimes just scratches more than actually draws? But anyways, we've got some decent texture there, and I will put that pen back into soak so that the ink doesn't dry on it. Meanwhile, this other pen has had a chance to kind of soak as well. So if anything was drying, in theory, that's kind of lifted out a bit. So now we will outline Noah and Ursula, and then we'll go over with some fatter lines to make the figures pop. Probably make the back wall kind of black too, because then it'll give a bigger impact. So Noah here will be getting a stream pretty soon. I think the first week of April, probably. Um, Certainly by the end of April and into May. Excuse me. Um, so he's the main character of my webcomic, Noah's Archipelago. And generally speaking, I draw him on my iPad. So, but I've got a couple projects that I think be doing some ink work with him, although possibly not, well, probably not pen and ink. I think what I'll be doing is like fine liner markers instead. Um, But I want to actually do a coloring book, an adult coloring book featuring Noah. And thought I've been thinking of doing that for a couple years, and then I just never find the time for it. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I should do it as a live stream where every week I have, a couple hours, and then it's in the schedule, right? And then I'm a little bit more accountable. So I have the idea for the coloring book, but I got to do like some rough drawings. It'll be kind of interesting to see how I do the setup because kind of well, what I might do, kind of thinking, there's a couple ways I could do it. Could do the rough sketch and then use a light box to get it to this level with like a blue pencil, and then just ink it. So it'd be very similar to this, only I'd be working with fine liner markers. Um, or the other thing I could do in the live streams would be to actually have the um, light board, light table, whatever you want to call it, light pad underneath, and actually have the drawing done, and then basically I'm tracing a clean copy on stream. I don't know. The tracing thing might kind of, I don't know if that would be as interesting to watch, but who knows? On the other hand, it would be a different approach than what I do on these other streams, so maybe that would make it kind of fun. But we will figure that out sometime in April. It's a bit of a running gag with Noah that sometimes we break the fourth wall, and Noah addresses the audience and complains about the cartoonist. Usually that's when I haven't finished the cartoon proper in Procreate, and I like resort to doing like a quick doodle, like marker sketch um, thing, and then Noah will talk about the cartoonist with the terminal case of lazy bonitis. This is a bit of pot calling the kettle black because Noah's mother-in-law insists he's incredibly lazy himself. This is also pot calling the kettle black because his mother-in-law Agnes has not had a job since the 1970s. As soon as she got married, she became a sort of a society lady, I guess. But she definitely did not work after getting married, so and Noah is, he's a stay-at-home dad, but also he sings in bands. Like, he was never supposed to be the main character of my webcomic. First of all, it was originally planned as, like, a puppet show, and then I just realized how much work and space it would take to do the show as planned with puppets, so I decided I could draw it instead. Um, but the main character was supposed to be this guy, Glenn. He's actually, and then Noah was gonna be his, like, bar band scene rival. And then I had this whole story where Noah's first wife, Gigi, is Glenn's girlfriend of the last, you know, 20 odd years, 20 years or so. Um, and had all this sort of random stuff coming on with Noah and his various ex-wives and a crazy mother-in-law who thinks he's a gigolo. Anyways, all this sort of stuff. Um, and by the end of it, I realized I think this Noah dude's the more interesting character. Sorry, Glenn. So, anyways, then it became the Noah Thorson show. and then it became a comic. So he kind of has a complicated life, but he does play in bar bands and does the cover band thing and tribute bands and stuff like that. So, it's not that he don't work, but he doesn't have like a corporate job that his mother-in-law would respect. So, neither does she, of course. But, it's different when Agnes does something or as the case may be in this case doesn't do something like working. Noah also sings in cover bands. Well, I just said cover bands, but has a wedding band. I found out that that is actually a very, very lucrative gig. If your band does covers and does weddings, you're probably charging like possibly 5 grand a show. And then you figure if there's 4 or 5 of them in the band, and by the time they have multiple wedding gigs all summer long, it adds up. So we've got Noah Ruffton there, and now his bratty daughter Ursula. Ursula's 8. She also likes drawing cartoons, so she's kind of a bit of a self-insert, which I didn't think of at the time, but then later I was like, wait a minute. This little brat sounds kind of familiar when I think back to my own childhood. I think a lot of artists do that kind of thing, but I will say she's not a Mary Sue. The whole idea of a character that is a self-insert usually and then is like perfect and flawless and all that. Like, no, Ursula's lazy, she's bratty, you know, she sucks at math and is kind of proud of it. Hand's a little messed up, but oh well. Yeah, give a little texture to Noah's shirt, and then we're gonna start going over some stuff with a bigger, fatter nib to give a little more oomph. All right, do we want super fat or medium fat? I think we will do super fat first. I'm just debating, should I make that background super dark? Because the other thing is because this is a thumbnail, I may at times want to superimpose text, but I can do that in this area. Mind you, if it's a black background, I can still do that, right? Hmm, Things I should have thought about this morning. You know what? I think when I look at the others, tend to have very dark backgrounds. So yeah, we will think about this in a minute. First, we're gonna go where we definitely know we need some fatter shadow. I think what I'll do is kind of a vignetting thing, so it's gonna be dark around here. I know, and then it's just gonna taper out like that. Compromise or whatever. And then we'll do the same thing over here around Miles. So we'll kind of have a bit of a curve going down towards Ricky. Yeah, like about like so. And we'll do the same sort of thing on the floor, even like that. So it's kind of go like that on the floorboard. All right. Yeah. I will fill in a little bit more with tonality on the floor. And I think we'll kind of skip the whole wood grain thing and just have this sort of floor texture. Now we'll take the medium guy and add a little line weight in outline. So we won't like completely outline them, but we're going to make some parts of the outline fatter. Like that. Doesn't have to be completely thicker. I'm not gonna, well, actually, I guess sort of towards the handle, the whip should be thicker towards the handle. So kind of do that because it just gives that little extra heft at the base. And To a certain extent, I kinda drew it like there's a cloth that's gathered around the pedestal Miles is standing on, but unfortunately, I had kind of done this line first, which kinda makes it not make sense, but, you know what? I'm kind of I think doing that kinda helps a little, yeah. And then we'll give a shadow under Miles, because of course, however the light's falling, he's gonna be casting a shadow. I think I will yeah. Do that on the floor because it narrows his leg, because otherwise the one was a little bit too ballooned, you know? Like the underside of Ricky's tail, I'm gonna make bolder and darker, even though realistically that doesn't make sense that the floor would be just so underneath the arc of his tail, but, you know, it also doesn't make sense that you'd have, human-sized talking rats, so wearing human clothes, so we kinda don't worry that much about, logic. Let's make the bar stool kinda black. And that was probably a mistake. I should have left it white. You know what? We'll probably just ignore that because I'm not even gonna scan this really. What I'm gonna do is um, take a photo of it, and that will become, and then crop the photo. So we're not gonna worry too much now. I will give a little bit of an outline here. There's sometimes in cases like this where you feel you've made something too dark, when you make other things darker, then it makes more sense or it evens things out, so that was definitely, a mistake. Well, it's like last night's stream, I had a big dollop of ink drop in the middle of the thing. So it happens. Just fatten up certain lines. And the other thing, I will probably take this into Procreate and I can clean up a couple spots when I take the photo of it. I do want to give a little bit of texture in the Thorson's hair. Ursula is not blonde. She's kind of a redhead, I guess. Light brown that's kind of got a bit of an orangey tint to it. So we'll do that, which kind of makes her hair look tangled, but it probably would be. She has pretty unmanageable hair. As for her old man, well, he has multidimensional hair color, as the ad as used to put it. He's got some gray streaks around his bangs here and there, but then he's got different shades of dark brown in the rest. So we'll kind of, it's just a little bit hard to communicate with black and white, but kind of get it by how dense the shading is, I guess. Yeah, we've got a bit of a sheen too with the lights, so like if I do that, then it shows a bit more. Do want to give a little bit of definition in Ursula's hair again. But we'll do that with the skinnier nib, but just going a little bit more like that. And like that. Her and her double ponytails. And I think, especially when I do this, I don't get the reflections anymore. I think we are going to call this one done. So this will become the future Tuesday live stream thumbnail. And like I said, I may kind of use this area to put titling in there that'll be color, you know, to pop out. So that is our first task of the night. Now let me find the other one. I will very carefully set that part out. If you can see, yeah, you can kind of see how wet and globular some of that ink is. So the next one, because I will be starting a live stream featuring Noah sometime next month. This kind of harkens back to, actually, I don't think it was ever a proper cartoon per se, but it was like just like a little doodle for Inktober or something, where it was Noah on the phone with his wife Ruth, that being Ursula's mother. Um, he's got the remote in one hand, he's got a Roomba going around in the other. He's eating chips, um, watching The Price is Right, and he's saying, "Of course, I'm vacuuming right now. What, you think I just sit on my ass all day, watching eating chips and watching The Price is Right?" So I don't know. It always made me kind of giggle. So we are going to use that as the reference. Calling it The Adventures of Noah Thorson, but the stream is just going to be working on Noah projects, so it's not like I have a graphic novel called The Adventures of Noah Thorson yet that I'm planning on doing anyways. So let's get our titling done again. Top left all the way down to the bottom right is usually how I do this. And we're going to try and do some sort of something with the typography. Let me just kind of do that. Where it's not fully filled in, but you can still kind of get a bit of a filled in sense. Once upon a time, long, long ago, I was kind of into um, hand drawn typography for a while, and then I kind of got lazy and stopped doing it. Maybe that's something I should practice in my sketchbook again. Lord knows it would be kind of a useful skill, being that I do graphic novels and stuff like that, right? And as I learned with the webcomic, like I am almost done. Now I think at this point I only have like one bonus cartoons, and it's a self-portrait for the about the author page. Just can't seem to make myself do it, but I'm gonna have to on like Sunday or maybe next Monday. But I am almost done the first Noah's Archipelago anthology, and I thought I was going to be able to finish it back in 2023, and then I just kind of something in my spidey senses said, you know, the font that you're using in Procreate, what's the license on that? I mean, you kind of assume fonts that come for free with a software program are, you know, are licensed such that you can use them for commercial projects. But, and I'd been doing Noah's Archipelago since July of 2022. So this is like July or August of 2023, and I'd been using I think it's called Jack Armstrong. Again, it's one of the fonts that comes free in Procreate. And then I thought I should probably look up what the licensing on that is. And lo and behold, it is not licensed for commercial use, even though it's part of the free one of the free fonts that comes with Procreate. And there's absolutely no documentation until I like went looking for it to find out that actually I did not have the license for this font, which I kind of would have assumed came with the software. So I was pissed. So then I ended up having to re-letter every single um yeah, like there's like 300 and some odd Noah's Archipelago comics that required re-lettering. 174 of them for the first anthology, and then um, the next one, I think, yeah, I guess math wise would have to have just under 150. Um, so it took a while, but I did buckle down and like make myself finally last year finish the relettering. Um, I mean, from that day forward, all the Noah's ones, I hand letter them, but because I had this backlog, right? So, anyways, that's kind of made me appreciate the value in not being lazy and doing your own hand lettering. But the lettering I used for Noah's Archipelago is kind of, I mean, it looks like my regular printing, and you can see that that's kind of messy, right? So, but for titling and whatnot, it'd be kind of nice to practice and get a little better with hand drawing fonts, my own fonts and stuff like that. So, I do know that you can act I mean, obviously you can. I think there's software that will help you with the process of designing your own font. Actually, I have a couple of people who read my comic when they've heard me talk about this whole situation were like, "Well, you can make a font out of your handwriting." I'm like, "Yeah, I know I could." On the other hand, sometimes when you're, just writing in, you know, the way you do kerning or whatever, the way you form the letters on the fly, I kinda like the unevenness of it, for lack of a better word. Um, but still, there is definitely wisdom in the you could, um, make your own font, but definitely for when I was setting up templates for in InDesign for the Noah's Archipelago anthology, I made sure I looked up and went back and was like, "Okay, is this a font that is available free on the internet, free for commercial use or whatever?" And made sure, and went and looked up, for InDesign, a lot of the fonts included did, any I don't know about any, but fonts in InDesign, most of them are licensed, with the software for commercial use. So I went and I had to dig through. I found, okay, the version I have is the Creative Suite 2. I went back to a computer from 2008 and what fonts came for free with that, because of course I downloaded other ones. And were those fonts that were free downloads with the software? What's the license? Anyways, it was a whole nightmare. But I do know that the fonts that I have in the set up in the template for the Noah books are ones that are fine for commercial use, so I am in the clear. But that said, it would actually be kind of cool to make my own font, like for headers or whatever. But that's not a project for right now. Moral of the story is if you're planning on publishing your work in any sort of commercial sense, you got to look at that kind of crap. Like the odds of that you would get sued over something like that probably narrow. Probably just get a letter saying, hey, pay me. But I just didn't want to deal with the hassle. So it's definitely something to look into at the start of a project. Another project that will be upcoming sometime in April, and I'm starting to work on it now, but I will be starting an additional channel where I'll give like tutorials and tips and stuff like that for working on graphic novels. And oh, believe me, when I was making a list of topics, the whole thing about font licensing and that saga was like, make sure you have a video about this. So, all right, now we get to actually draw Noah. And even though I usually work top to bottom, I just find it works better if I start with his eyeballs, even if it means that it's a little. Technically, then I'm not working top to bottom. Supposed to be angry, but those eyes kind of look hurt. Like, how dare you say that I'm not working when I'm sitting on my ass watching The Price is Right and eating chips? There. He's gritting his teeth, and now it's kind of he still looks a little butthurt, but there's a little more edge of anger in the butthurt. And you can kind of tell where Ursula gets her unmanageable ponytail hair from. It's the her coloring from her mother, other than she has the same eye color as Noah. But she gets her hair texture from her old man here. And this time we're gonna kind of tone his hair as we go rather than leave it to the end. I think my proportions on him are a little out, but let's see here. One head height, two head heights, three head heights. I mean, he's the classically you would have a figure be like 7 to 8 heads tall. 10, well, I guess if you're doing fashion illustration, they make the legs crazy long. Um, Noah seems to generally be about 6.5, I'd say. It's a little hard to tell too because he's slouching, so his back would be longer than his belly, right? Um, I always remember what when I was taking some ceramics classes, what our instructor used to say about hand building figures to make sure they wouldn't like fall over or blow up in the kiln. She was always like short, fat, cute. That's how you want to do it. Um, yeah, well, Noah would object to being referred to as fat, but he definitely, I mean, he kind of makes his bread and butter off of being cute, right? So, or he thinks he is. That's it. I think his proportions are definitely kind of out. Oh, worst case scenario, we just draw him as he is right now. And if I have to redo the thumbnail later, if it's starting to bother me, then we'll redo it later. Yeah, well, the other thing is his navel would not be that high for sure. His navel's about here. Anywho, This is the second night in a row I've drawn a dude being lazy on the couch because we had Miles doing that in last night's stream. Oh, well, technically, Miles wasn't doing it. But he was thinking how he would have rather be at home being lazy on the couch. So I mean, I tried these kind of like they were nacho chips, except they don't really have anything on them. But I don't know. Maybe Noah's weird. Maybe he likes plain nacho chips or tortilla chips with no salsa. Prop my hand. Oh, I guess my hand doesn't show. I was gonna say what I'm doing to keep my hand steady without dragging it through wet ink is putting my fist under, and then I can kind of keep my working hand up and above. Um, Still end up putting my pinky down though, because I probably should have done the lettering here before I drew him. Something I saw on Twitter the other day where somebody was talking about, I guess this woman had posted, she was pissed off that her husband was taking a nap on the sofa. And the comment I saw from the individual I follow is like, why do women get pissed off when men are sleeping on the sofa? I'm like, oh no. I've never been bothered by that. My mother probably napped on the sofa more than my dad did, so she didn't care. My aunts just took it for granted that my uncles, after Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, were going to go sit on the couch to watch the game and then promptly fall asleep and miss most of the game. So nobody cared, but you know, kind of looks more like a nightstand than a side table. But you know, if you have a side table with drawers, you can stash stuff in the drawers. So really, I think it's much more practical. I'll give him socks that have kind of a contrasting toe. So it's always find this pose kind of awkward to get the anatomy looking right, which is my own fault. I need to, I guess, practice drawing feet more. Maybe we'll just give him dark socks, and then that kind of hides the fact that, you know, sometimes stylistic choices come down to hiding things that you didn't draw quite the way you wanted to draw. Believe it or not, I actually did use a reference photo for this. I was like, okay, I better look up man with feet on coffee table. Not just on the coffee table or on one of his wife Ruth's books. But, anyways. And I will definitely be coming in with a fatter nib to give a little, depth to the sofa and kinda pop Noah out of it. Although he's definitely doing his best to sink into it, but you know what I mean. Should I draw the carpet? Yes, yes, I should. First, I'm just gonna, because the way I usually draw the Thorson family living room in Noah's Archipelago, there is a wood floor and then there is a honkin' big area rug. Um, so I don't know if it's actually shag carpet. It's starting to, it's already starting to give the impression of shag carpet, but it is a big, big area rug. Excuse me. I'm just going to make the, carpet takes forever with the little strokes, but it does also fill up pretty quickly and then it looks good. And then when I use the fatter nib, I'll give it a little bit of light and dark as well. When I think about the proportions, then I go the other way. One, two. Yeah, his proportions aren't that bad. One of the things I kind of do also with Noah's Archipelago is like his mother-in-law thinks he's lazy. I think I referenced that earlier in the show. But he is stay-at-home dad too. Well, Ursula's a handful, and but also there's a baby, an infant that he has to deal with. So it's kind of a full-time stay-at-home dude kind of a job, and then he has his band rehearsals at night. So He's not actually that lazy, though he does like efficiency. There have been whole plot lines where he's trying to figure out like the best robot that will, like a gutter cleaning robot. Still has to get up on the ladder, but drop it in the eaves troughs attached to the hose, and then have the robot clean the gutters. He's got his little iRobot or Roomba or whatever, whichever brand he's chosen for the vacuuming. If he could figure out a robot that would fold the laundry for him, that would be awesome. There's one cartoon where the wife was asking him to clean the windows, but it was when they had watering restrictions going on. But he did spend 2 days on the internet, looking up window cleaning robots, which are a thing apparently. I guess you have, like, 2 parts, so you would have to have either one person inside the house, and the other one on the outside on a ladder, but it's like kinda like, they have those magnet cleaners for aquariums where they hold together on either side and then drags around, but apparently there are window cleaning robots. Noah obviously must have been a big fan of the Jetsons when he was a kid. They lied to us. They said by this point we would have robot housekeepers, and that's just not happened. I'm going to draw the TV and TV stand so that I work my way back down. So I don't know. I don't think the document camera I'm using will focus quite that tiny enough, but I had like a whole relatively big ball of paper fiber on the end of the nib there. It's oh well. So there. TV stand, which also has records in it, but we're not going to worry about the records this time. We're just going to pretend that it's a cabinet with doors because I'm lazy. That's why. Well, Noah says that in several comment. Excuse me. There have been several quick marker sketches posted on the Noah Facebook over the years where I have missed a comic, and then we have Noah talking about the cartoonist's terminal case of lazy bonitis. I think I mentioned that earlier. So here we go. The cartoonist's lazy bonitis decided not to draw a collection of vinyl underneath there. So almost to the point of using the fat nib, and then we will be getting pretty close to wrapping up. So, but probably another 15, 20 minutes. If I did decide I was gonna put titling on this thumbnail and, you know, I don't know if I might, but say I said calendar project, I'd probably put something in bright color here and then like an episode number down here. Um, so, but realistically, I probably won't. I'll probably just use this and then kind of like I've been doing the last couple weeks with the Monday and Friday streams. I just have I'll use the kind of generic thumbnail up until the stream, and then when the stream is done processing the next day after I go live, then I download I make clips or shorts to post, and then I can grab a thumbnail from that to like just export an actual. Just gonna give some motion lines there, um, but like find a good frame from the actual video and turn that export that as image and then upload that as the thumbnail. So, and we're gonna go. All right, now let's find the big fat nib. All right. I think. Yeah, let me just I don't know, give a little thickness and shading under there. But I think basically we are done. So yes, move pens from a bowl with really dirty water to one with not so dirty water, and I just spilled some ink, whatever. Um, so what do we do today other than getting ink on my fingers? Um, we have 2 thumbnails for regular streams. So first off, we did this one for this very stream, the Tuesday night work stream. So we've got Miles and Ricky from Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. Miles cracking the whip and being his usual bossy self. Ricky going, oh, fine, won't even let me finish my beer yet. It's not quite Ricky's accent, but I think Ricky invented his accent anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And then Noah and Ursula, they're not going to be told to go to work by some little half rat, half mouse dude. Noah takes his orders from the cartoonist. And Ursula, well, she doesn't take her orders, period. She don't want to work. So that was the first one. We will start using that as the default Tuesday night thumbnail from next week on. And then we did this one for future Thursday night stream, which I haven't started yet, but The Adventures of Noah Thorson. Not that we'll really call it that, but for working on Noah-related projects like the coloring book project I want to start and whatnot. So Noah sitting his ass on the sofa, eating chips, watching The Price is Right. Well, the Roomba or iRobot or whatever does the vacuuming. But I guess he's supervising, right? Anyways, so that is today's stream. And what's up next? Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, I will be inking a couple more pages from the Ricky B. Goes to Sea graphic novel featuring Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. I believe what I'm doing this week is the first ad break in the book, which is kind of their business is related to the story. And it will develop into the B story later on. So we'll be doing that. And then, of course, next Monday, we will be working on Miles stuff for Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness. I believe we will be up to the O spread. And next Tuesday, I think we will possibly be starting that calendar project. If not, we'll do some other small bits of art until I get everything in line. But definitely by April, we will need to be starting the calendar project on Tuesdays. And the Noah stream will be starting sometime in April. I don't know if it will be next week or be the week after. Well, I guess definitely the week after, but coming up real soon. So thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. And we will see you again real soon. Bye for now. Have a good few days and catch you on the next stream. Or if you can only tune in on Tuesdays, well, then have a good week. See you soon.